Joining us now is Craig Snyder, President and CEO of the World Affairs Council of Philadelphia. And Craig, fair to say that the threat from North Korea is perhaps outpacing the ability of missile defense to shoot these things down?
Well, the United States has a sophisticated missile defense system that's been developed going back all the way to President Reagan in the 1980s. We certainly have a better capability to do this than any other country in the world, but one can never be sure that it would be foolproof. When you're talking about these kind of catastrophic potential outcomes, one that gets through is too many.
And from a policy perspective, if in fact we would ever have to rely on shooting down a missile, that would essentially be perhaps the wrong outcome, regardless of whether we were able to knock it out of the sky.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, obviously, if a missile is fired at the United States, we want the ability to shoot it down, and we have, as I say, the best that is available, given technology and given the money that's been put into it. But you never want to get to that point, and that goes to the larger question of policy towards North Korea and whether or not we can prevent this threat from coming to life.
The Trump administration seems to sort of be dismissing the rhetoric these days that comes from North Korea. On this day, the North Korean ambassador to the United Nations said that because of the sanctions the United States pushed through, their country is ready to impose, quote, the greatest pain it's ever experienced, the greatest pain the United States has ever experienced. What's in it for the North Koreans to have this kind of colorful rhetoric and language?
Well, that rhetoric goes back to the very beginning of the founding of the North Korean state. I think you can discount a lot of the bellicose rhetoric, but you can't discount the reality of the way their capabilities have been improving dramatically and quickly. The September 3rd test of a nuclear weapon, estimated to be 100 kilotons. That's 5 Hiroshima bombs. That's the kind of thing that you don't have to get directly on a target, on an American city, anywhere near it, and you're talking about catastrophic loss. It may or may not have been a hydrogen bomb, but it was certainly a very large bomb. So their capability to inflict the kind of pain they're talking about is getting better all the time. And these sanctions, I think, let me put it this way, I think the rhetoric is overheated on both sides, in the sense that Ambassador Haley saying today that these sanctions demonstrate a commitment by the Security Council to prevent the North Koreans from having the capability to launch nuclear attack, I think is just not accurate. It's not accurate in terms of what the Security Council has done, or even what economic sanctions are capable of doing. The fact is, we have already a nuclear-armed North Korea, likely with the ability to deliver weapons in one form or another against the United States, and certainly against our allies in Japan and South Korea. So in a sense, the cat's out of the bag, and one has to question whether or not this approach of continuing to say over and over again that a nuclear North Korea is unacceptable, when in fact one already exists. And there's no reason to believe that economic sanctions are going to force the North Koreans to give up their weapons, deliver them over to American inspectors, whether the American rhetoric is outsized to the situation as well.
And in fact, in a number of foreign policy circles, the one scenario that people think that might cause the North Koreans to heal would be China cutting off the oil that is going to North Korea. But do you see any scenario where China would ever agree to that in totality?
It's very, very unlikely. I mean, the first draft of the resolution that was passed today called for an end of exports of oil to North Korea. The Chinese and the Russians both were unwilling to go along with it, so they went for a 30% reduction. Look, there's no history anywhere in the world that I'm aware of economic sanctions causing a country to give up voluntarily military capabilities that country thinks are in its own interest. That's sort of just not how history has worked. I've been saying for many months now that there are really only two options here. One, a horrible option is war, and we're talking about sort of World War II style combat with catastrophic losses to literally deprive the North Koreans of the capability that they currently have. And the other is to accept the fact that they are a nuclear-armed state and to try to deter them, to contain them, and as your last correspondent was talking about, to defend against the threat on our side. I think those are the only two options.
Craig Snyder, President and CEO of the World Affairs Council of Philadelphia. Craig, thank you for doing this. We appreciate it.
Thank you.